Hello, and welcome to one of Britain's premier steam railway lines, the Severn Valley Railway, which is today run by a dedicated team, keeping alive some 16 miles of steam railway. Highley is just one of the superbly restored stations along the route between Kidderminster and Bridgnorth. Running along the banks of the River Severn, this ex-Great Western line was closed in 1965 following the infamous beaching cutbacks. But thanks initially to a small but dedicated team of enthusiasts, the line was reopened in stages from May 1970. And today, after 20 years of private ownership, the line is busier than ever. It's an impressive team effort, relying on a complex mix of people, skills and vintage equipment. During the course of this programme, I shall be looking at the railway operation, and Nigel Harris, editor of Steam World, will be talking to Severn Valley General Manager Michael Draper for the background to what is now a £2 million plus business operation. The Severn Valley Railway has been run since January 1976 by General Manager Michael Draper, who exudes confidence in its appeal. From the comfort of the officer's saloon, he pondered the reasons for the railway's success with Steam World editor Nigel Harris.
I'm not sure how far luck plays its legendary part, how far the fact that we run for 16 miles along the River Severn plays its part. I would imagine and would suggest, however, that sheer professionalism, dedication and enthusiasm plays a tremendous role. And there's no point in having 32 miles of railway and not knowing how to market it, to sell it, to plan it, to operate it, to promote it. And you've got to have the wherewithal. You've got to have the rolling stock, the equipment, the signal boxes, the whole paraphernalia of a railway. Volunteers operate the railway, so every driver, fireman, guard, TTI, booking office clerk, all of those people, station masters, station staff, they're all volunteers. The fact that now and again you may see a member of the paid staff driving or firing, he's doing that in a volunteer role because he's a member, just like the rest of us are members. And bear in mind that your permanent staff, by and large, are recruited from the ranks of the volunteer members.
This classic image of a steam train moving through the landscape is the tip of a very large iceberg of normally unseen backup work, much of it carried out in the busy running shed at Bridgnorth. This is LMS Ginty 060 number 47383, built in 1926, being prepared for its day's work. Before any engine can couple up to its train, there are hours of preparation, oiling and cleaning to be completed. From every ton of good quality coal shovelled into the locomotive fireboxes, a half-hundredweight or so of ashes are dumped into the shed pits, all of which has to be shovelled out. It's tough, gritty, unpopular and essential. Before the engine leaves the shed, as well as several times during the day, water tanks have to be filled to enable the boilers to be replenished. Even this modest Great Western pannier tank carries more than 1,000 gallons. And when each engine is finally in steam, cold, watered and nearly ready to go, there's always time for that last polish. Safety is paramount, and the railway's signalling engineers have a complex job, For in the busy summer season, up to 5 trains work simultaneously on the single line, using loops at the picturesque stations to pass each other. The railway has 7 traditional manual signal boxes at Bridgnorth, Hampton Road, Highley, Arley, Bewdley and Kidderminster, all worked by specially trained volunteers. To ensure that each single line section is occupied by only one train, the driver carries a metal tablet inscribed with the name of the section. The tablets are locked and released electrically from these vintage machines in the signal boxes at each end of the section. The fireman of this train at Bewdley is collecting the tablet, giving his driver authority to run on to Arley. The traditional billy can for the crew's tea remains an essential part of the engine's equipment. Not everyone wants to be an engine driver, and the railway has a smartly turned out force of platform staff, guards and ticket inspectors who help ensure that the trains run to time. All are rostered to their duties to ensure smooth operation. A late running train causes chaos on the intensive service. The volunteer workforce reflects the railway's universal appeal to all age groups too. There are those who can probably barely remember everyday steam, and those for whom it is doubtless a fond memory. This workshop repairs traditional platform furniture, luggage trolleys and benches. The railway welcomes nearly 250,000 visitors every year, many attracted by the idyllic appeal of the wayside stations. For the station masters, however, there's a lot of far from idyllic work involved. This is Arley, roughly halfway between Bridgnorth and Kidderminster. The passing loop was reinstated in 1974 to 75. The changing seasons set the agenda for the station gardeners. More than 200,000 passengers travel on Severn Valley trains each year, and more than half buy their tickets here at Kidderminster, where they arrive either by road or by rail from the BR station next door.
£3.50.
The normal service would be challenge enough for the railway's staff and volunteers, but each year the seasonal marathon of the Santa Specials brings thousands of extra visitors to the railway in the weeks before Christmas. This train is hauled by British Railways Class 4MT number 75069, built in 1955 at Swindon Works. Swindon was also the birthplace of this engine, Hinton Manor, built in 1939. This engine and number 75069 were both resurrected for the Severn Valley from Barry Scrapyard in South Wales. The Christmas trains attract up to 48,000 passengers each year, although this depends very much on the weather. Heavy weekend snow has been known to reduce figures by around 6,000, the equivalent of 2 days' business. There are mince pies and punch for the grown-ups, presents for the children, and entertainment for all. It's still a hard day's work for the train crews, of course, and sometimes in bitterly cold conditions, but the children's excitement and anticipation make it all worthwhile. And there's always the prospect of hot chestnuts roasted over an open fire to warm the fingers, while the children can meet popular cartoon character Postman Pat. And then the chance to whisper their secret Christmas present wishes to Santa Claus himself. The Christmas trains run between Kidderminster and Arley, where Santa's grotto can be found. The operation requires 4 locomotives, 24 coaches and more than 100 staff. Again, nearly all volunteers. In the week leading up to New Year's Day, the Severn Valley runs mince pie specials. Such an intensive year-round operation takes its toll mechanically, especially on the steam locomotives, whose maintenance is crucial. Repair and servicing work is done here at Bridgnorth, supervised by Chief Engineer Alan Rees, who I met recently in the shed yard. Alan, you must maintain quite a large fleet of locomotives to support such an intensive service. Just how many have you actually got here?
We've got 28 ex-British Rail mainline locomotives, plus the diesel locomotives, plus 4 small industrial shunting engines. I regard the fleet as the 28 ex-British Rail mainline engines.
I suppose, compared with today's modern traction, steam locomotives need intensive and regular maintenance. So just what is involved?
It depends how long it is since an engine had its last thorough overhaul and how much work is done in the meantime. But to do a full overhaul on an engine, you literally take every single part off it, take it to pieces, and repair it as necessary. What is involved, of course, depends on what you find.
In addition to looking after its own fleet, the Severn Valley undertakes contract engineering work on other engines. These are parts of John Cameron's Gresley A4 Osprey, a mainline excursion engine. It was dismantled, overhauled and rebuilt in less than a year. Normally based in Scotland, the locomotive was stripped to its last part and rebuilt in as-new condition for a fresh programme of mainline excursion work. One of its first public duties after this overhaul was the Forth Bridge Centenary celebration held in March 1990. This is LNER Gresley K4 class, the Great Marquis, a locomotive preserved in 1963 by the late Lord Lindsay. Built for the West Highland Line from Glasgow to Fort William and Mallaig, the design dates from 1937. Delivered to the Severn Valley in 1972, the locomotive was the subject of a lengthy and very expensive overhaul, carried out between 1981 and 1989, when it was recommissioned at Kidderminster by BR Chairman Sir Robert Reid. The engine returned briefly to its old home in the West Highlands in 1989, and Lord Lindsay travelled in its cab from Fort William to Bannerby a few days before his death on August 1st, 1989. Keeping the engines running requires not only a wide spectrum of skills, but also sophisticated and costly facilities. One of the most significant developments in recent years was this impressive boiler shop, which allows heavy repair work to be undertaken undercover. Raising money for major projects like this meant the Severn Valley Railway had to go public with a share issue. It's big business with a difference, as Michael Draper explained to Nigel.
We're deploying £2 million worth of assets. Our turnover is £2 million. We have 14,000 volunteers. We have 45 paid staff. We have 12,000 shareholders. I've got lots of customers, lots of suppliers, lots of people, lots of contacts. The whole railway depends on professionalism.
Although the Severn Valley line was once a through route, it was essentially a branch line in character. However, since the line reopened in 1970, it has built a reputation as a big engine railway, and large locomotives from all 4 pre-nationalisation groups can be seen, as well as engines designed and built by BR after 1948. This is number 34027 Tor Valley, a bullied West Country class Pacific, built for express passenger work on the Southern Railway and rescued from Barry Scrapyard in 1980 by owner Bert Hitchin. Professionalism in all aspects is the Severn Valley's hallmark, and nowhere is this more highly polished than in its impressive diner train service, the Severn Valley Limited. It runs every Sunday in season from Kidderminster, departing around noon and providing a silver service lunch for up to 142 passengers. The service is organised by catering manager Jerry McGovern, and a traditional English Sunday lunch of roast beef or spring chicken is provided aboard a luxurious Great Western Railway chocolate and cream liveried train. The drivers need to take extra special care when starting. Neither waitresses nor diners would appreciate spilled soup. Voluntary assistance is welcomed by Jerry McGovern, but most of the kitchen and table staff are paid. They work regularly together as an enthusiastic and polished team. There's something very special about enjoying a fine meal in a vintage carriage, hauled by a steam locomotive through beautiful scenery, a popular alternative to fast food and formica. These carriages are used for other gourmet dining services operated by the Severn Valley on Saturday evenings. Diners' trains are just one ingredient in the successful Severn Valley recipe, which attracts increasing crowds each year. Michael Draper.
Last year we met the target of 200,000 just. 200,466 tickets sold. We're modest actually in our head count, so I don't include charter trains and I don't include gourmet trains.
Many of the Great Western's country stations were built on a comparatively grand scale, with substantial accommodation and facilities for the station master. At Highley, that authentic atmosphere has been carefully recreated to show the railway as it would have been prior to the Second World War. The peace and tranquility of this timeless scene is only briefly disturbed by the regular comings and goings of the railway's steam service. Located 6.5 miles from Bridgnorth, Highley is a very attractive spot to break a journey and either watch the River Severn flow or just sit on the platform as the trains run by. There is a passing loop, but only a single platform. In bygone years, 4 neighbouring collieries provided traffic for the Severn Valley line here, feeding their coal onto the branch via standard and narrow gauge sidings, cable inclines or aerial ropeways. The station opened on February the 1st, 1862 and closed on September the 8th, 1963. An everyday working life of 101 years. Now fully restored, Highley is a past winner of the nationally organised Best Restored Station competition. With one hand, the fireman surrenders the single-line tablet the driver has carried from Arley, whilst with the other, he collects the tablet, giving authority to proceed to Hampton Load. The tablets are carried in pouches secured to leather-bound hoops, enabling exchanges to be made on the move. Steam railways appeal to a wide range of tastes, from those who are discovering the delights of steam for the first time, to the time-served enthusiasts who are determined to miss neither sight nor sound of every last hiss and whistle. Twice a year, the Severn Valley holds gala days, when up to 12 engines are in steam. LMS Ginty number 47383 takes its turn over the full 16 miles route, despite having been built primarily for shunting. Once the summit of Erdington Bank has been reached, it's downhill all the way to Bridgnorth Station, serving a pleasant market town. The historic town of Bridgnorth is perched high on a hill overlooking the Severn Valley Railway and river. It's well worth spending some time exploring the shops and market square. The most interesting way to reach Hightown is by using this unique cliff railway. Bridgnorth is an ancient market town built on two levels, known locally as Hightown and Lowtown. One of Hightown's most prominent features are the ruins of the Norman Castle Keep, besieged by Cromwell's troops during the English Civil War. The tower leans at 17 degrees, a greater angle than the famous Leaning Tower of Pisa. High Street is a classic English main street, flanked by half-timbered buildings and Victorian shops, which combine with a network of narrow passageways and stepped alleyways to create an almost medieval atmosphere. High Street's central feature is the 17th century half-timbered town hall, which straddles the carriageway. It is a rarely found example of a stilted building. A traditional Saturday open market is held here. Hightown gives a good view of the road bridge over the River Severn, from which Bridgnorth takes its name. For many centuries, the town was a thriving port, bustling with barges. These boats plied the Severn from Coalbrookdale, upstream from Bridgnorth, to Gloucester and Bristol, carrying iron ore and china. This rare archive film, which only recently came to light, shows Bridgnorth, now the Severn Valley's northern terminus, in the latter years of BR ownership. It was an intermediate station on the 40 miles through route, opened in 1862, linking Hartlebury, near Droitwich, with Shrewsbury. The link from Bewdley to Kidderminster was built in 1878, and the line was absorbed by the Great Western Railway in the 1870s, and then British Railways in 1948. The passenger service was supplemented by agricultural traffic and coal, principally from Highley. Increasing road competition eroded rail traffic, and through passenger services ended in 1963, whilst the last coal trains ran in 1970. Reopened from Bridgnorth in stages from May 1970, services reached Bewdley, some 12 miles distant, in 1974. Then, in 1983, the Severn Valley launched its ambitious Kidderminster extension plan with a successful share issue, which raised £590,000. A further share issue, in 1988, raised almost £400,000 from around 4,000 subscribers. Michael Draper.
We moved on the basis that by extending the railway another 4 miles, by joining up with British Rail physically, and by moving south to an established market town, very well linked both by rail via Birmingham New Street and by road via the motorway system, we felt, and I felt, that that was a logical but significant step towards increasing the passenger potential. And at the same time as increasing the passenger potential, we increase the whole aspect of the railway.
Based on the former GWR station at Ross-on-Wye, this reproduction building is located in the old goods yard. It opened on July the 30th, 1984, and the station is of early 20th century design, incorporating booking hall and waiting room, bookshop, and the King and Castle licensed bar. This new signal box was constructed and opened in 1988 and features a 62-lever frame salvaged from Acton Yard in London. The track layout and platforms in the station area were all new in 1984, yet so much attention has been paid to historic detail that the newcomer could be forgiven for thinking they have always been there. The station can accommodate 10-coach trains, and there's a connection with BR Metals too, enabling the operation of through workings. Following GWR tradition in communities where there was more than one station, Kidderminster is known as Kidderminster Town, to distinguish it from the BR station close by. Future plans include the construction of awnings over the platforms and this concourse to protect passengers in poor weather. The extension to Kidderminster also enabled the carriage and wagon department to establish a superb workshop in the large former goods warehouse, seen here in the background, bought from BR for £75,000. The Severn Valley's intensive 5-train passenger service requires around 40 coaches to be available at any one time from the railway's fleet of around 70 passenger vehicles. A carriage is a surprisingly complex vehicle, requiring a wide range of skills to service and refurbish running gear, brakes, plumbing, electrical systems, woodwork, upholstery, bodywork, roofs and windows. A full overhaul is a major exercise, and these expansive facilities will enable the railway to ensure that the quality of its passenger stock is continually advanced. Although the locomotives tend to steal the limelight, it is the passenger carriage which presents most visitors with their most direct impression of their journey, and the railway seeks to make continuing improvements. The works has the use of its own diesel shunter for marshalling carriages during repairs. The Severn Valley Carriage Restoration and Repair Workshops are some of the best private facilities of their kind in the country. Carriages suffer when kept in the open, and a long-term plan is to construct a carriage storage shed in these sidings at the Kidderminster station throat. The railway has one of the country's biggest fleets of preserved carriages, which needs a substantial stud of locomotives to haul them. So, let's sit back and indulge in the classic train spotter's activity of finding an attractive spot at the line side and watch steam at work. The locomotives spent half their time running tender or bunker first. The tank engines were designed with this in mind, and so look quite at home. During their working lives, many of these engines carried different liveries. The most notable change occurred as they passed from the privately owned companies to the nationalised British Railways in 1948. Today, present owners are careful to restore their locomotives as accurately as possible, choosing from a wide range of colourful historic possibilities. In addition to the passenger classes, engines designed for heavy freight traffic can be seen at work on Severn Valley trains. Built at Swindon Works in 1918, this massive locomotive, including its tender, cost nearly £6,000, a snip at today's prices. Number 2857 was saved from the scrapman in 1971 and returned to service in 1980. Large locomotives were not designed with much tender first running in mind, but with no turning facilities this is unavoidable, as the Severn Valley has yet to install 2 turntables acquired some years ago from BR. This Stanier Class 8F is a much-travelled engine. Built in 1940 by the North British Locomotive Company in Glasgow, it saw war service overseas in Persia, firstly for 3 years on the Trans-Iranian Railway and then in the Suez Canal zone. It returned to Britain in 1952 and after overhaul at Derby went to the Longmoor Military Railway in Hampshire. It was bought by BR in 1957 and following repairs at Eastleigh was put to work during September in Glasgow, city of its birth. It was one of the handful of steam locomotives which worked until the last days of steam traction at Rosegrove Depot in Burnley, Lancashire, after which it was preserved on the Severn Valley, where it has been based since arrival in 1969. The engines are as versatile as their origin is varied. In BR service, these locomotives were used to haul 1,000-ton limestone trains in the Peak District of Derbyshire. In the past, the Severn Valley line would never have seen the diverse selection of motive power that can be found here in the yard today. However, now it is not unusual to see express passenger locomotives, freight engines and tank engines all operating the railway's timetable, each a classic example of British steam heritage. The Severn Valley has also served as a base for engines owned by the National Railway Museum at York. Stanier, Black 5 number 5000, a member of the National Collection, was based at Bridgnorth throughout the 1980s. It also worked on mainline excursions before being moved to Steamtown, Carnforth as a static exhibit in 1991. Number 5000 is climbing away from Bewdley towards Foley Park Tunnel and Kidderminster. Most of the locomotives based at Bridgnorth are owned by private groups and societies, but Leander is owned by the railway company itself and has proved a capable and popular ambassador, not only on service between Bridgnorth and Kidderminster, but also as a mainline excursion engine. The Severn Valley and its locomotives certainly demonstrate plenty of pulling power. During a busy summer weekend, around 2,000 people will visit Bewdley, changing trains and breaking their journey for a look round the station, or maybe just in search of a pot of tea. The Severn Valley offers good value. All return Kidderminster Bridgnorth tickets are Rover tickets, permitting, other than on gala days, unlimited travel over the railway on the day of issue. Start early and you can make 2 full return trips over the 16 miles branch, giving 64 miles of travel for the price of 32. Many visitors use this facility to the full, enabling them to explore the attractive wayside stations at Highley, Arley or Hampton Load. Bewdley is a bustling station, and the island platform gives it a feeling of importance. It opened in 1862, with services running from Shrewsbury to Hartlebury, and the opening in 1878 of the Kidderminster connection made the station into an important junction, with a busy goods yard and 2 signal boxes. Today's Severn Valley services reached Bewdley in 1974. and the station was the railway's southern terminus for a decade, until the Kidderminster extension opened in 1984. The Severn Valley Railway markets itself as Britain's premier steam railway, and this is no idle boast. Its fleet of 28 British Railways mainline steam locomotives features a remarkable cross-section of types and classes, and is especially strong in its Great Western and London, Midland and Scottish Railway representation. Leander carries the Crimson Lake used by the LMS for its express engines during the 1930s, an impressive echo of the golden years of Britain's railways. Hinton Manor was rescued from Dyewoodham scrapyard in Barry, South Wales in 1973 and returned to steam in the autumn of 1977. In addition to home-based work, it also flies the Severn Valley flag as a mainline-approved excursion engine. Let's join driver Ray Tranter as he heads for Bridgnorth. Driver Tranter checks the speed of the train with the vacuum brake before entering Foley Park Tunnel between Kidderminster and Bewdley. The train runs into Bewdley Station, the head office of the Severn Valley Railway, and the fireman takes the opportunity to build up the fire for the work ahead. In the course of a day, he'll shovel perhaps 3 tons of coal from the tender into the firebox. The driver is in charge of the train, responsible for safety and punctuality, and he knows the road intimately, every curve, signal, gradient and speed restriction. Trains pass slowly over Victoria Bridge, high above the River Severn at Arley. The 200-foot single span was built in 1861 and gives tremendous views. Driver Tranter waits for an approaching train to clear the section ahead, before he can collect his single-line tablet from the signalman and continue his journey towards Bridgnorth. This view of Hinton Manor's cab from the tender shows just how exposed to the elements the engine men were, even on a relatively modern Great Western engine. In rain, sun or snow, the trains always had to run, and it was a tough job needing tough men. Engines built by BR after 1948, like number 75069, were provided with bigger tenders and more enclosed cabs, giving greater protection to the driver and his fireman. When not busy with his duties, it is the fireman's job to assist the driver in watching the road ahead, principally to observe signals. Firemen learn their craft on the job, as in BR days, in the hope that one day they will be promoted and cross the cab as drivers in their own right. It's a realistic aim for a Severn Valley volunteer, but you need plenty of determination, enthusiasm and patience. Biggest engine on the railway is number 34027 Tor Valley, the rebuilt Bullied Pacific. In the last days of Southern Region Steam in 1967, Bullied Pacifics were still delighting enthusiasts by running at speeds of up to 100 miles per hour, and given the chance, Tor Valley doubtless still could. On the Severn Valley, the engine runs at much lesser speeds, but still presents an impressive spectacle, forging up Erdington Bank on the last section of the journey from Kidderminster to Bridgnorth. Driver Tony Bending is in charge on this occasion. Back in 1965, even those who founded the railway could not have foreseen the heights to which it would aspire in the 1970s and 1980s. Having achieved so much, what of the future for this thriving organisation?
The railway's future depends on the customer. The customer is king, and unless the railway adapts its facilities to make sure that we offer a tremendously interesting, thoroughly enjoyable and relaxing family day out, then we won't have a railway. So my efforts, the efforts of my colleagues, will be directed towards improving facilities. A visitor centre one day, an exhibition shed, picnic areas, landscape design, you name it, all of that sort of thing we must do.
The journey is nearly over, and driver Bending drifts towards Bridgnorth Station with the last train of the day. With the working day over, most engine crews find their way to the Railwayman's Arms, the station bar. It's as much a part of the Severn Valley as the steam engines themselves. As we have seen, the Severn Valley Railway is much more than just a steam railway. It's a total experience. Best of all, it's a great family day out. And what better way to toast over 20 years of successful operation than with a pint of the local brew in the Railwayman's Arms here at Bridgnorth Station. So here's to the future of Severn Steam.